Moving right into records. What are records of processing activities, Guy? And we've got some sub-questions tied to that. Do I need to keep these records? And how does a cloud service provider contribute to maintaining records of data it processes? So maybe starting off with the first question.
So, yeah, I mean, these are all mandatory requirements. So, you know, certainly not a nice to have, oh, let's incidentally keep some records. And as I said, you know, just leading on from the previous question, if you are subject to an audit and there is a reason for an investigator to want to investigate why or how something was done, the first thing that's going to happen is, all right, so where are your records? You know, what was that risk assessment? What was the nature of processing? What was the data involved? Was a purpose defined? Was there consent? What categories of data subjects were we talking about? You know, just so many different aspects need to be covered. And it's quite explicit, really, again, about the requirements. I mean, you know, not only the controller, you know, who's the controller's representative, who's the EU representative if the controller is not established in the EU, is there a data protection officer involved? Is it certainly pretty much in depth, and the requirements are considerable. And I would say, again, this is not a matter of, oh, hang on, it's the regulation, I've got to keep records. This is a matter of, you know what, keep your side clean. And if there is an audit and you don't have records, you know, you're going to have a lot to account for. What is interesting, though, is that the record keeping requirement per GDPR doesn't necessarily apply to every organization. There's this little cutoff at around about 250 employees. If you've got more than 250 employees, you are obliged to keep, or you are required to keep records. If you've got less, and Neil can correct me if I'm wrong here, the regulation doesn't say you can't keep records. If I remember correctly, the term used is that the requirements for record keeping is less, not that you don't need to keep records. So again, if you've got less than 250 employees, maybe you want to think about what the important records I need to keep are. So certainly, again, it would start with that risk assessment. You know, do I have a DPIA? The next thing would be, you know, what was the data that I used? What was the purpose? Was there consent approved? Have those records in place. The last thing you want to do is fall foul of an audit and find that, first of all, even though there may not be a financial penalty, the mere fact that you may have a notice served against you has got a reputational risk. And the last thing you want to be is to be in any form of media for the wrong reasons.
Good point on that last
Absolutely.
one. Fantastic.